So far in the C# programming, we have done each and every task in console application. In this video, we will begin with the graphical user interface, and along with that, we will start implementing the events to perform the operations at runtime. So let's get started with the graphical user interface now.
For getting started with the GUI programming in C#.NET, what you can do, you can come to File, New Project, as we have done it for console application, using which we will get an idea of GUI programming. And right here, it's your location where this program will be created, and here you can put the name. So here I gave the name Tutorialspoint_GUI. Let's say OK. As soon as this application is created, you can see a form right here in your main screen. You can drag its border in order to resize your form as is the default size, and you can see a couple of more windows, like on the left hand side you can find a toolbox inside which you will be getting a number of different types of control. On the right hand side you are getting the solution explorer as earlier, and one property window where you can see the property of various controls and forms which we will be using in any application. Now in the solution explorer you can also find, like, this is my project name, this is the solution. Like earlier I said, you can have a number of projects in a solution. So here you see, like, I have already taken one, and inside this you will get a number of options like properties, where you will get the CS file and a resource file which will be containing the properties regarding a particular project. References, as earlier we have already seen. The core.NET libraries has been passed here, which you can use anytime in your application. And this forms.cs, like here this is form 1 I have already taken. If you will expand this tree, you will get a designer.cs and the form1.cs. So if I'll click on this designer.cs, you will see like all the C# code for designing thing is done here. If you will come for this form 1, you can see the code page for putting all the logical implementation. So in both the pages you can see there are the partial classes, partial class form 1 in this namespace, and again partial class form 1 in this namespace. So logically they are going to be combined by the time you will instantiate this class. And as we know that the program execution always begins with the main, here you will see that it is a program.cs, inside which you will get a main method, and here inside we are invoking this form1 instance. So whichever form you want to put as a startup form, you can simply put the name right here, and that will be treated as your startup form. Like here form1 is being set, so as soon as the instance will be created, the constructor of this form1 will be called, which is existing right here. And as you can see, inside this form1 we are calling a method called initialize component, and this initialize component you will get inside form1.designer.cs after expanding this code. So here is what your initialize component. Currently it does not have much inside it, but as soon as you will start putting the controls inside this form, this definition will get elaborated, and you can see like whatever you are designing is here inside this initialize component. So let's continue with the designing of a form. On the design view, to see the property of this particular form, I'll simply right click, say property, or you can also press F4 by after choosing a form, and here you can see all the properties of this form1 is there. As you see, default property is text. Let me change, like main form, and you see the text in the title bar of this form got changed. Similarly, if you want to increase the size of this particular form, you can come to font, and there are several properties that you can simply try. Let's come to this toolbar, and we'll come to this common controls, where we will find some number of controls. Let's say I double click on the button, or you can simply drag it and put it here wherever you want. Like the form, you can also drag the border of any control in order to resize that. And since you can see this form is selected, as soon as you will press F4 or you will go to property, now you will be able to see the property for this button 1. Let's say I click on the text property and I say click here. So you see text got changed and now it is saying click here. But what should I do when I will click in this button? Let's execute it and see how the output is looking like. So here I have this form where I can easily click this button, but there is no action taking place because obviously we have not decided anything. So in order to do that, let's double click on this button. As soon as I will do that, in this form1.cs where I was having this constructor, right after that you can see there is a method called button1 underscore click. If I want to pass a message, I'll say message box dot show, and here I can give any message like welcome to Windows application. Let's run this, and now when I'll click the button, it is saying welcome to Windows application. So this is how you can choose any control from this toolbox and double click on that. You will get the different events and on which you can plan to do something. Like if I'll double click on this form, I will get a form load. So suppose I want to change the text of a button as soon as the form loaded. Initially I set it click here. By the time form is getting loaded, I want to change the text of the button. So we have already seen the text is the name of the property which has the set and get accessor. So button1 dot text is equal to click me. Alright, and semicolon at the end. Let's execute this. So you see now it is saying click me, and again the same message. You can also do some other operations in any event. For example, I want to close this form as soon as I will click this button. Let's say I say close form in the button text, and here I'll say this dot close. What is this? This is the current object, and from where it comes? It comes from program.cs because this is the object which we just created, due to which all this is going on. So this will be representing the instance of form1 which is running on a particular machine. As soon as I will say this, the form would be closed. Let's see. So I'll click on this button and you see form is closed. You can also put some different overloads of this messagebox.show method to perform the operation in a more clear way. Like here, I give the message, are you sure to close this form, and confirm. So let's see what is the change out there. Here you will see confirm is coming in the title bar. But I'm only getting one button, that is okay. What if I want to say no? So I can have a couple of buttons like message box button, which is nothing but an enum. I already discussed while covering enum that enum will be there whenever you want to choose something from a given list. As soon as I'll put dot, you can see there are several options coming, and as per my scenario I will choose yes, no. And you can also set an icon on your message box like message box icon dot question. So like this you can customize. Now I have a couple of buttons, yes and no. I want this form to be closed only when I am saying yes. So whatever it is there, it will be returned to a variable called dialog result, as dialog result is the return type of this show method. So dialog result, let's say dr is equal to this. Alright, and now if dialog result is equal to dialog result dot yes, only then I want to close this particular form. What if no? I don't want to do anything. Alright, so let's execute this form. I said close form, icon is coming, question mark, yes no button are there. If I say no, form is still here. If I'll say yes, form is closed. So this is how you can do the things logically right here. Now let's take some more control like label, text box and button again. So I have taken some controls. Let's drag them to arrange in a particular manner. And let's come to the property of each, and there will be a text property which I will change to a particular value. Like username and password. I will increase the width of these controls, and similarly with the button. When I'll discuss about this text box will by default take a text value, but if you want to put a value like password here, you can simply come to the property. You can also find the text property right here for the text box, but to convert it as a password text box, you have two options and you have to choose one of them. Either set anything in the password char. Let's say I said dollar symbol. So whenever you will start entering anything in this text box, it will come in the dollar. Or remove this and say use system password char. Say true. So whatever the password char is for your particular operating system will be taken. Like here for Windows, it's a bold dot symbols are there. So when I'll execute this, you see username is visible and whatever I am entering in the password is not visible. So it is now set as a password. And as earlier, you can simply change the text of this button also. Let's take the use of some more controls. Like here I have a control called checkbox, and let's take the button again. As you may have seen in several scenarios, like whenever you submit a particular form, at last you get a checkbox like which says I accept terms and conditions. Alright, so right after this checkbox I have put the submit button. Alright, just a minute. And let me change the text to submit. Alright, now what I want is when I'll click on this checkbox, only then this button should be enabled or visible for me to submit. If it is unchecked, I should not be able to click on this button. So let's see what other properties of checkbox are there. So here you will find a property called checked, which is false by default, and it is of Boolean type for sure. If you will say true, by default it will be checked. So what should I do is, I am putting it unchecked, and what I'll do, I will go to the properties of this button and will say enabled, which is true by default, to false. So when I will execute this form, you will see this button is disabled for me. Now what I want, when I will click this checkbox, this button should be enabled. So for doing that, I will double click on this checkbox, and here I'll get the checkbox 1 underscore checked changed property. And here what I'll say is, since check property is Boolean and disable enabled property is also Boolean, when checked is true, the enabled is true. When checked is false, enabled is false. So I can write it in a single line as well, like button1 dot enabled is equal to checkbox1 dot enabled. If checkbox one dot checked, if it is checked is true, enabled is true. If checked is false, enabled is false. Let's see if it is working. Yes, it is working. Alright, so this is how you can plan about choosing the controls as well. Similarly, we can take another control called radio button, which is actually used whenever you want to put a single selection. So here it's a very common example, like in genders I want to put it like male or female, you have to choose one. So in the text I will change the value again for both the radio buttons like this, and you see whenever I will execute this, it is taking a single selection. Alright, so let's consider another example. Like suppose I'm creating a gym registration form where I will first of all ask your gender, like male or female, and then how you'd like to pay. In payment mode, credit card or internet banking, or could be any pharmacy application form, whatever. So, since radio button will allow you to get a single selection, you can either choose the gender or the payment mode, which is obviously not logical. So, for doing it in a proper way, what I can do is I can put them in the group box. So, coming in the toolbox, there is a segment called containers, inside which you will get a group box. So let's add a couple of group boxes here. In this group box 2, I will keep these two radio buttons. If you want, you can put some another text, or if you want, you can remove it as well. And similarly, you can put the male female radio buttons in the group box 1. Now, when you will execute this, you can make one selection from gender and one selection from this payment mode. So this is about some basic controls in Windows Forms application. As we will proceed to the next topics, we will cover some more controls for the same.